What's up, creeps, and welcome to KEATONCAST, episode 3. I'm Justin.
I am Jeremy.
Yes, Jeremy doing his rough and gruff Batman voice over there. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first episode through the Epic Film Guys podcast that we're doing the KEATONCAST on the main feed. There is a very good reason for that, because we just sponsored and hosted a very special early fan screening event, advanced screening of The Flash this last week, and we just felt like we just had to take the opportunity to sit down, talk about spoiler-free reactions. We're not going to go in depth or anything, but also talk about the screening, the hype for the movie, and all that crazy shit. Because if you listen to episode 1 of KEATONCAST on our Patreon, you've already heard what my reaction was in a similar way to seeing it at CinemaCon last month. But Jeremy just got a chance to see it, along with a massive fucking sold-out crowd.
350-seat theater.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're going to talk about it. Over 100 people had to be turned away. There's hype for this movie like I've never seen for any other comic book movie before. I seriously mean that when I say that. People think that I'm just like hyperbole. No, it's real. But Jeremy, before we get started and we talk about the screening, kind of like early reactions to the movie itself, and what's the chatter on social media, you had something you said you wanted to tell our listeners about. You had a little story of sites.
Two things. I think we should tell them about the name situation, right? So you guys remember when Prince, changed his name to the symbol, and it was like, he's the artist formerly known as Prince, It
was just a symbol, and, people were walking around with the symbol on the t-shirt, and motherfuckers were like, what does that mean? And they didn't really know. It's like, it used to... Prince, well, this is him now. This is what they are. So,
we've had some discussions, myself, Justin, and Brady. Be-rat-tat-tat. And this is something that we've discussed for a long time. We love the name Brain Stew. We think it's great. It does represent kind of what we do with the show quite a bit. But it is a little confusing because it's Epic Film Guys and the show is Brain Stew. And so when you try to explain that to people, they're like, well, wait a minute, what? I can't find your podcast, Brain Stew. And it's like, well, it's Epic Film Guys.
What?
What? What? So for a long time, we're like, should we drop the Brain Stew moniker because it's a little confusing for people? So that is what we have opted to do. We are now the artist formerly known as Brain Stew. We are simply just the Epic Film Guys. And I'm excited about that. And I'm happy about that. It takes a little bit of the confusion away. So RIP Brain Stew.
Yeah, I mean, we almost made it for 2 years under that moniker. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you're aware of this. Plenty of you know what it's like to rebrand something. I mean, Epic Film Guys 3 or 4 years ago was a certain cast, certain number of members that are no longer with us. I mean, Loy Sauce, he pops his head in whenever he feels like it on Patreon and stuff or whatever. But, our permanent cast members changed, and it was our way of kind of rebranding, but still keeping the same flavor in the new direction that we wanted to take it. But at this point, it's like literally, I mean, when I go to big events like CinemaCon and stuff, it's like they don't really care. They're just like Epic Film Guys. And when they say that, that's what they mean, and that's who we are. And this also opens us up to being able to do so much more. We can review anything we want again, and it still will be primarily horror stuff. But, ladies and gentlemen, the gates are always open for us to be able to do whatever we fucking want. And Jeremy bringing that up was a great idea. Even though, let's make this clear, you came up with the name Brain Stew, and I fucking loved it. And, But, and
I dig it too, but I feel like it wasn't serving the purpose that we had intended for it, which is okay, So I'm Epic Film Guys Jeremy, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and that's where we're at right now, ladies and gentlemen. But yes,
I do have a story though.
Yes,
so
of course.
All right, so check this out. Today, I feel like I won the Super Bowl.
Oh no!
Because. All right, I'm gonna rewind the clock here to when Jeremy was 7 or 8 years old, and yes, I just talked about myself in the third person. So I saw a movie on TV. And literally for the last 30 years, I have been trying to figure out what this movie was. And nobody has fucking known, to the point where I was like, dude, does this movie even exist? Was it something that I made up in my mind? So let me break it down for you. This is the only thing I could remember about this movie for the past 30 years, is there was a good-looking chick that was high school aged that was pursuing a high school guy.
It's like a billion movies right there.
Okay. But hear me out. The chick had the ability to like kind of be a monster, and she was killing everybody close to this high school kid, but he was like also kind of in love with her. So in my mind, my mind as a child, what I could remember was that her hand turns into a drill all of a sudden, and she drills into somebody's chest, and that's all while the main character, the high school aged guy, watches like appalled, right? So for 30 fucking years, I'm like, every horror movie friend that I have, I'm like, listen, I saw this movie when I was a kid.
You're walking up to people at conventions and you're like, grabbing people. Hey man, you ever heard? You're just telling the description to the people.
I'm like, look, her hand turns into a drill. She kills a guy. Our main character watches. It's a whole thing. Every single person has been like, I have no fucking idea. So this is how wild, like the next series of events I'm about to tell you was. So I'm texting with my buddy Devin and my buddy Aaron, and we're talking about 90s horror. And I'm like, there is some 90s horror that I like, but I'm not the biggest 90s horror guy. And I'm like, well, what movies do you guys like? And so they were like, The Faculty. And I was like, okay, I will give you that one. I fucking love
The Faculty.
I love that one. Meanwhile, my buddy Chris Pratter, who lives in Kentucky, he messages me and he's like, dude, have you ever noticed that this scene in Prom Night 2 is very reminiscent to the scene in the locker room where the chick is naked in The Faculty? And I was like, dude, it's really wild that you just sent me that, because I'm literally having another conversation right now about The Faculty. So that's wild. And he was like, yeah, man, and he sent me screenshots from Prom Night 2 and The Faculty. And I was like, yeah, dude, they look very similar. Then I was like, you know what? I randomly thought about that movie that I haven't thought about this horror movie that I have not been able to figure out every day of my life for the past 30 years. But dude, several times a year, I'm like, what was that? So I was like, it sparked something in me for some reason, like intuitive almost, to be like, hey man. And the same description I gave you about the movie, I gave to him, and he went, oh dude, her hand doesn't turn into a drill and drill into the guy. She's holding a football, and she turns the football into like a drill football, and she throws it, and it drills into the guy's chest. You're talking about Prom Night 3. And
which I've never seen. I was about to say, I thought you were talking about Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2. I'm like, that doesn't happen in that one. So no. I've never seen Prom Night 3.
Dude, he sent me screenshots, and I literally went, oh my fucking God, that's it. After 30, and here's what's fucked up. Okay, so at one point in my life, I was a humongous physical media collector. Like, I still have over 2,000 DVDs and Blu-rays. So with that, I have not seen everything that I have. Dude, I have the Prom Night 3 like DVD probably for at least for over a decade.
And never watched it.
Never.
I knew it.
The movie that I've been trying to figure out for 30 years, I've actually owned for over 10 years. And it's like, now I'm like, I got to watch fucking Prom Night 3. It's funny because every single time I'm like, all right, I'm going to watch the Prom Night movies. I'm like, well, part 1 is kind of boring in my opinion. I'm kind of good on that one.
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
I'm not the biggest.
It's a classic.
I'm not the biggest fan of the first Prom Night. Prom Night 2 is a fucking masterpiece. So anytime I've been in the mood to watch a Prom Night movie, I go with part 2. Well, now I'm going to watch part 3 because dude, thanks to my buddy Chris Pratter, fucking shout out. I love Chris anyways, but now I love you even more. So figured this shit out for me. So I'm really, dude, I seriously feel like achieved through this.
I love how we're bringing in Prom Night 3 before we talk about The Flash. Great combination right there.
Yep. So that's my story, man. I'm going to sleep tonight knowing that the movie that's been racking my brain for 30 years, I now know what it was, and I'm very happy about it.
It's a great feeling. This is a thing, ladies and gentlemen, that comes up, I feel like, all the time. Particularly on film Twitter or horror Twitter, if you will, people being like, there's this movie, and they'll put a description of but I don't remember what it is. Because, when you're young and shit, like, you remember elements of things and memories, but you don't remember, like, characters' names or actors or things. And then they find out, and then they try to watch the movie. And usually, Jeremy, words to the wise, it ends up not being as cool or radical as it was when you first
I
watched
do
it. But
not have high hopes for Prom Night. I rewatched the trailer and I was like, all right, well, that's gonna be an experience,
right?
That's gonna be an experience. So I'm looking forward to it though.
Hell yeah. But ladies and gentlemen, some of you may have actually come to the screening that we were talking about that we hosted this last week at Tyson's Corner AMC IMAX in McLean, Virginia. It's DC, DMV area, whatever. But it was absolutely fucking bonkers, man. I mean, we gave out passes to this thing, and on Twitter, I believe over 1,000 people put in for it. People all over the country wanted passes. I won't say names, not to make anyone uncomfortable, but a few people I know came from across the country. A friend of mine came from New York to see the movie. A person I've been involved with on social media in terms of the Burton Batman universe came from Nashville, flew here to see the movie.
Dude, he was cool as fuck, man. He sat next to me in the movie and like we talked for 10 or 15 minutes before the movie, and he was super fucking cool. I really like that guy.
Yeah, I mean, great dude. Not going to say his name because didn't get permission or anything, but seriously, one of the biggest Burton Batman fans in the entire world. I mean, people were coming out of the woodwork. It was stressful. I'm not going to lie to you. We had 30 passes to give away, and unfortunately, and I'm going to be straight up about this, Warner Brothers overbooked the shit out of the screening, and that's going to be something I'm going to mention here in a few moments.
Which is why over 100 people got turned away.
Yeah, and they did this at every single screening. Apparently, when I got back from our screening and I got to look at Twitter and Instagram and such, apparently they were doing this everywhere. Now, yes, it is terrible because the passes are first come, first serve, and a lot of people that want to see something like this early or unaware of how the advanced screening type of thing works. You and I are very aware because we've been doing this for a long time. But at some screenings, Jeremy, people were showing up and they were in the first 20 people and they still didn't make it in, which that fucking sucks, man. That's a huge bummer.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. I mean, and especially because it was very interesting to see that there were so many rows of reserved passes for the movie when you're trying to get in regular fans and people just to see the movie as well. But, not anything that was under our control. We were just asked to, be a part of it. But man, I'm telling you right now, you were there to see it. The line, I've never my entire life seen a line that long for an advanced screening in my entire life. And I've been to countless numbers over the past 5 years.
It looked like a line for a ride in an amusement park. It was massively long.
So you showed up and that line was huge. And then you got in the theater early because we were able to get in early because we were hosting the thing. And then right before the movie started, I went out again and the line was still almost as long, like wrapping around the entire top part of the mall. And I was like, this is insanity. I don't think I've seen hype for another movie on this level in maybe ever. I mean, in terms of like going to the theater and paying, for the ticket yourself and going to see a movie, I have seen hype that big. It was 1989 and seeing Tim Burton's Batman. The Phantom Menace comes to mind and a few others, but reserved seating is a thing now, so most people don't like line up, but there was like this energy, this feeling when you were in the lobby area where you're like, oh my God. And of course I'm scrambling because I want to make sure every single person that we gave a pass to was able to get in and that they were taken care of, because hey, I don't want anyone to tarnish the EFG name, especially not ourselves. But it was, bonkers, but understandably so. I know what Warner Brothers is doing. It's very clear to me. They're adding hype to the movie because, hey, 100 people couldn't get into this screening. 100 people couldn't get into that screening. It doesn't matter why, but people are talking about it for that reason. And they still want to see it. I'm receiving messages even today, Jeremy, where people are like, are there any more screenings? Are there any more screenings? Do you have passes for anything else? That's how bad people want to see this movie. So you're automatically building hype for a movie that comes out in a few weeks, but they can't wait. They want to see it now.
Mm-hmm. Dude, it was crazy. I mean, dude, the nervousness on people's faces too, on like, am I gonna get into this thing? And also the nervousness of, man, I hope this is great. When this many years has passed since Michael Keaton was in the bat suit, everybody needs for this thing to be great. Not just wants, like people, especially people in our age demographic, that Michael Keaton was our first Batman, or first strong introduction into the character. I've told the story before where I always thought Batman 89 was my first movie because it's the first one that I remember. My grandmother took me to see it. I remember being so tired in the theater that I asked my grandma to hold my eyes open for me. But I was then once the action started hitting, my dad was there as well. Said that he had never seen anything like it because I was on the edge of my seat and I was, 5 years old, and but my bubble was burst when I, not that long ago I told my dad, I was like, yeah, Batman 89 was my first movie. He goes, no, Superman 4, Quest for Peace. And I was like, there you go. Well, that explains my shitty taste in film. It's because my first movie was a canon movie.
A canon fucking movie.
I love it, dude.
Ever. That's the best thing ever.
Yeah. So I mean, Batman has I am admittedly not the biggest superhero guy, even though I grew up on comic books. I love, it was a huge part of my childhood, collecting comic books and reading comic books. But as I've gotten older, tastes change, things change. I'm not somebody that races to the movie theaters to see every comic book movie.
Oh, it's understandable. I mean, the world is different now than it was in 89 or even 95 or even 2005. I mean, comic book movies are a dime a dozen and they come out every 3 months and it's not an event anymore. I mean, but for us, much like what you're saying here, I've already told my story, but I'll continue to tell it. Particularly on these KEATONcast episodes, but 89 Batman, Michael Keaton Batman, it's my shit. It's literally my favorite thing in the world. It was my introduction to cinema, but this is a big deal. Like you said, this is an event. This is the same thing, when Star Wars fans were like, hey, Luke Skywalker's coming back to Star Wars. This is the same thing as people looking forward to seeing their favorite hero return. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people, we have the new indie movie coming out this summer, but when Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was coming out, people were like, Indiana Jones is coming back out. Oh my God, it's been however long, So seeing our heroes return, and yes, they are slightly elderly or older in their form, it's still so exciting because a lot of us, and I could cry thinking about it, never thought it could ever happen.
Never. If you would have asked me, a couple years ago, if I thought that Michael Keaton would ever come back, I would have said absolutely not. He's moved on and he's fine with that. And, it's Batman 89 and then Batman Returns, mic drop, he, to him, I mean, that's perfection, dude. So I get why he would also be hesitant to return because, there's been so many times where when being interviewed, people were like, you got to play Batman. And he's like, I didn't get to play Batman. I am Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, dude, that's the shit. That shows like his sense of ownership over it and
awareness.
Oh.
I mean, he clearly knows. And some people in the community they've kind of positioned that as being like him being egotistical or chauvinistic or name a bad definition. But to me, it just means he loves what he did in those movies. He appreciates what he did in those movies because he wouldn't be the star he is without them. But also he realizes, and this is going into the reason why Warner Brothers and the Muschiettis decided to put him in the movie in the first place. They know that, I mean, there's a massive percentage of people in the world that still consider him the greatest Batman of all time. And yes, since him, we've had Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Christian Bale, Ben Affleck, Robert Pattinson, all bringing something different and something, I would say, special. Yes, I would say that Kilmer and Clooney brought something special to the role because I love every version of Batman in some way. But everyone looks back to that nostalgia, but also just thinking about the purest form of the cinematic version, and it really just comes down to Michael Keaton's version. So, when you think back to when this was first announced, I swear to God, and I don't think I've talked about it much yet on these segments, but I literally came in my pants. I'm just being honest about it. I did. And then I couldn't believe it. I thought I was dreaming for days.
And you're still wearing those pants
right now.
And they smell.
Right
and they
now.
Smell.
And I wore the same pants to CinemaCon, and I wore the same pants again when we saw the movie this week. When we
Jizzy Pants Justin.
But it's this thing where I knew that he didn't want to do it unless Burton wanted to do it, and I know when he was doing press for Dumbo, him and Tim were asked about it constantly, and Tim would kind of just wave it off and laugh about it because he has zero interest in the comic book movie genre. But Michael seemed open to it. Like, hey, and I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that he's getting older. He's in his 70s, and he just wants to have fun, and he wants to make a lot. And I mean, a lot of
As he
money.
should, man. I mean, dude, he is the Michael Jordan of Batman. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I'm not gonna disagree. Look at the room behind me right now. I mean, look at my body. It's like it's embedded on me. But so, ladies and gentlemen, we can't review the movie itself. We don't plan to do that. We don't want to spoil anything for you about the actual movie. What we can do is a reaction in some way in terms of I've already kind of said what my reaction is to the movie, and the same movie that was screened at CinemaCon was the same version that they showed at these screenings across the country this past Monday. But Jeremy hasn't really been able to say what he kind of walked away from feeling, and we just felt like it was fair to at least do that. But no spoilers, no plot points, nothing in depth or anything like that. But we just had to talk about it. So, Jeremy, this was your first time seeing it. What was your takeaway?
Man, I made a post immediately after that this is in my top 5 greatest superhero movies ever made. And I want to clarify my top favorite. I said greatest top 5 ever made, but I should have clarified my greatest top 5 ever made. In my book. I walked away so happy. I had such a great time watching this movie, seeing these characters. I will tell you that Ezra Miller is amazing in this movie. Say what you will about the guy. We've already gotten messages from people fucking shaming us for supporting the film because of his legal entanglements and things like that. And it's like, you know what? Go fuck yourself. You're just somebody on the internet who wants to be angry at shit. Like we got a message from somebody saying I'm not even going to repeat it because it's not even worth repeating because this guy's a fucking idiot. But it's like this guy's upset because we put on a fan event and we hosted the fan event. So there's gonna be people that because of Ezra's legal entanglements that are gonna have their opinions on that. And hey, you know what? You're entitled to your opinion on that.
Very much so.
But don't come to me because you disagree with the fact that I'm excited about a movie, or you don't disagree, or you don't agree with us being excited about this movie. Go fuck yourself.
It's a movie.
It's a movie. Yeah. Respectfully so. Go fuck yourself. Ezra Miller is a powerhouse in this movie. Their performance made me laugh my ass off a lot. Their comedic timing is just so flawless, but also their emotional performance in this. I laughed, I cried, I cheered, I was on the edge of my seat. Man, I cheered some more. There's a lot of cheering that happens in this movie. This is an event film. This is special. This is not just a superhero movie where, you've got your superhero movie formula, right? There's your introduction, bad guy comes, bad guy starts winning, formulate a plan, end of the movie is beat up the bad guy, happy ending, there you go. This is not that. this has its own formula. It is a breath of fresh air. It is so entirely its own thing. And that's why Justin is really stressing about no spoilers, because this thing is wildly original and should be viewed the way that I saw it, because I knew nothing about this movie because it's not out yet. And I got to see it with fresh eyes, fresh ears, not having any expectations, not knowing anything. Nothing had been spoiled for me. And that's how everybody should see this movie. So I seriously, guys, I implore you to stay the fuck away from social media posts talking about the Flash. Stay away from websites, clickbait things, because this thing is special, and you should see it without anything being spoiled for you. This had a huge emotional 1-2 punch. I will say that. Um, Talking about superhero movies, when you look at Spider-Man No Way Home, that had some emotional caliber that went along with it, but I feel like this one even more had so much heart and soul in it. And it was a superhero movie unlike anything I've ever seen. And again, we're not doing spoilers in this, but I will tell you that the intro to this movie is so much goddamn fun, dude.
It's bonkers. I mean,
it's insane. I mean, we can't say anything else other than the intro to this movie is insane and was a perfect introduction into a solo Flash movie, even though it's not really a solo Flash movie. But yeah, I mean, in the in title only, the Flash.
Everyone's seen the trailers. I mean, if you haven't, I mean, you've already ruined everything for yourself. But I mean, you clearly see there's more than one version of the Flash in the movie. But so it's not a solo Flash movie. It's in its own way, and this is not a spoiler. It's a team up movie. But
even though it's simply called The Flash.
Yes. It could have been called The Flash and Friends. I don't know how well that would have gone over with the studio, but The Flash and Super Friends underneath. Yeah. But that's a really weird thing, because I don't know if I touched on this in my initial reaction, but the movie on a second viewing, to me, what it felt like in terms of tone was almost like, Justice League Unlimited, like the cartoon, like the animated series. Like it felt like that. It was just so fucking fun. And when you see these characters interacting with one another, it was just so exciting. And, you would think like putting, Tim Burton Batman in mixed with a modern comic book movie wouldn't work. I mean, I had my reservations. I know a lot of fans do. I run a Michael Keaton Batman group on Facebook. It's called Michael Keaton is Batman. And I see it and hear it every day. People are just so worried. But a handful of people that are the biggest Burton Batman people out there. I'm not going to name names. Some of them will probably be showing up on a KEATONcast episode here shortly in the next few weeks leading up to The Flash. But they walked away. We were messaging and they were like, no, it was perfect. It works. They nailed it.
You said it best. Is this movie, again, I grew up reading comics, specifically DC comics, specifically Batman comics. This movie legitimately felt like I was watching a comic book. Like, you didn't question, like in a lot of other superhero movies, like you kind of question logic and question things. Some things can be more realistic, some things not. This movie just simply was. And
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. You accept it. It just, everything flowed like a comic book. It literally felt like I was watching a motion comic book with real life actors. It was fantastic, man. Man, I don't know that another superhero movie is gonna hit this close for me, dude.
Well, then, I have done a lot of introductions to a lot of movies. I do them at Alamo Draft House once a month for our Terror Tuesday program. Hosting and introducing The Flash was, I just have to say this on the air because, I was standing there before I went out with the mic in my hand, and to get a little personal, Batman '89 was my introduction into cinema, and it's still the most important thing, deep in my soul. And I was standing there. You saw my face. You saw how stressed I was. It was just,
oh, dude, yeah.
There was this feeling. I was like, if there was any movie ever for me to do this for, where it would be the most important thing for me to do, it would be the return of Michael Keaton's Batman, because that's what
guys. Let me tell you that I know that Justin has been in metal bands and shit like that, and I know he was a front man, before, and make no mistakes. Being friends with Justin and doing a show with Justin is a rock star in real life. But I gotta tell you that when Justin introed this movie on the microphone, on stage, in front of a sold out 350 seat theater, I saw an electric version of Justin that was fucking on fire. He was a bamf, a badass motherfucker. The moment he grabbed the microphone, he instantly captured everyone's attention. I filmed it. Maybe at some point Justin will put it up, because, dude, I saw the rock star Justin that I hang out with and that we do the show with, and it was fucking awesome. And everybody was hanging on the edge of every single one of his words and cheering and clapping, and like, dude, you fucking owned that. And I gotta put that out there in the universe for people to know. Fucking rock star, dude.
I appreciate that. Seriously, I do. The funniest thing that happened before that, because I was wearing a sport jacket to be all fancy, and our good friend Dave Ferguson, I felt so terrible for him, because he was literally in the front row, and because he's taller than me, and he's crouched down all the way, and I literally just took off my jacket like they do in a movie, and I just threw it in the air onto his lap. Because I was like, fuck this. I'm not doing this with this jacket. I'm going to do this with my brand new flashed I'm Batman Michael Keaton shirt. And it was just hilarious, because the look on his face, I felt so terrible for him afterward, because he had to watch the movie in the front row. But at least he saw it. He got in. But no, thank you for the kind words. Seriously. I mean,
yeah, man, it was awesome, dude.
The energy that went through me, it was almost like a lightning bolt itself went through my chest. And
I was like half expecting a breakdown to hit, and you like put your foot up on a speaker or something.
Dude, it was that. But to be real though, seriously, and I do these events a lot, I just haven't felt that much energy. Like, you could tell everyone that was there was so excited to be there. Yeah, they knew they got in. Some people got free popcorn and soda and shit. Like, just everyone was excited to be there for this movie. Not just because it was a movie, but because it was this movie. And that's the level of hype this thing has. I mean, if you look anywhere on social media, particularly Twitter, which is where I hang out most of the time on the Epic Film Guys social handle, it's absolutely insane. Dude, people are coming out of the woodwork after me, and I know this happens on everything. But anytime anyone posts their opinion, I just said how I felt about it, much like you did. But I got death threats. I mean, I had people, you're being paid by the studio. You're such a clown. Do you have a gun put to your head right now? Are you really ready to ruin your reputation? Those were some of the straight up comments, like verbatim, that I received after I just made my opinion on the movie.
Fuck them.
Literally, no one paid me anything. If anything, we paid because we brought swag to the screening. We drove there to be there. We did everything for free just because we wanted to. Me going to CinemaCon, even though Warner Brothers invited me, I still had to pay for stuff. So it's not like I'm being paid to be, a fucking puppet or anything.
You're not being a paid influencer on this.
Exactly. And the fact of the matter is, even before the screening, I was talking to a few people in line, and they were like, seriously, like, is this worth being in line for? And I said, yes, I truly believe it is. If I did not believe that, I have integrity. We're film critics. We review movies. So, I mean, I would never lie to someone where am I going to get points from, Jeremy? I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like Warner Brothers is down underneath the table underneath me right now or anything. It's like, they just know that we've supported the movie, that we're excited about the movie, and they wanted us involved. And I can't thank them enough for that. It was an amazing night. And standing around after the movie, I swear to God, I didn't hear a single fucking person that walked out that was upset or unhappy. Like, it was just, you felt this release where everyone was just so excited and happy, and like I don't know, man. Like I can't remember the last time I've been to a screening where you felt that same feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It definitely was electric, and every single person that was there was honored to be there, because seeing the movie that early was special. And I'm going to say it again, this movie is special. This is not like anything that you've seen. And I really believe that. I will say it's not without some flaws.
Very much so. Very much so.
You and I have talked about that. Obviously, we're not going to get into what those are for me. And those are, it's my opinion. It's what I personally think. I'm not, it's just how I feel about, a couple tiny little things in it. And, we also did not see the final version of this
That's
film.
correct. That's correct. And that's why part of my introduction and part of what I was told in terms of being involved was we have to make sure we enforce the fact that, yes, you can tweet, post, comment about the movie. Just you can't review it or reveal spoilers, because the version we saw was unfinished. And that's the same thing they said it was at CinemaCon. It's the same cut. Very interesting choice. Wouldn't you say that they're showing a movie that's quote unquote unfinished
weeks before?
That means there's a lot of secrets. That means there's some stuff they don't want people to see. That means there's some stuff they don't want people letting out, because we already know that today, unfortunately, the director, Andy, revealed something to a journalist. I believe it was Variety, and Variety posted it, and they ruined a massive fucking part of the movie. That's just apparently this year, the new Fast and Furious movie, a journalist spoiled the return of, well, I'm not going to say because most people haven't seen the movie yet, even though it came out last week or whatever, a returning character before the movie came out, like a week before the movie came out. They're just fucking bullshit. Like, let people watch the movie for themselves. Yes. But number two would be like, hello, Mr. Director, like, this is your baby, unless the studio's like making you tell people about this, which would make no sense. Considering the amount of screenings they're doing for this. That's the other thing. They're literally pumping out early fan screenings of The Flash for people to see.
Sometimes filmmakers get word vomit, word diarrhea when they're excited about their thing, and it might have been a thing that he didn't necessarily plan on revealing, but it just came out. He should have probably stated afterwards, like, hey, maybe don't run that part, please. Like, professional courtesy, don't run that part. I shouldn't have said that. But
if anyone's read it, which I hope you don't, but if you have, I just have to say that moment in the theater was a massive moment for our crowd.
Yeah, incredible.
So it's you just don't read it. Don't look up on it. If you're worried about being spoiled, my recommendation would be stay off Twitter 100%. Facebook should be fine. But still, cross your T's and dot your I's. Just don't go anywhere where you think it could potentially spoil you on this movie. Like, you really want these moments to be special. You want them to hit as fucking hard as they were intended to hit. Just, don't read anything. It just sucks. Because when Variety, a massive outlet, is like, director reveals major fill in the blank character name, spoiler. It's like, dude, everyone's going to read it. It just ruins the movie for everybody.
It was a home run for the news publication, because they're like, oh, cool, we're going to get a bajillion hits on this.
Either way,
because the world we live in.
The problem is, Jeremy, as you know, people can't help themselves. They're gonna wait, what? They're gonna look no matter what, and it just ruins it. But at the same time, it's not gonna hurt the movie. And I think that's what they know. People are gonna go see this movie
a lot.
Multiple times. The one thing I can say about this movie, and James Gunn himself said it on Twitter earlier when he was asked about it, and I was asked about it the same. You don't really need to watch that much before this, or any.
Nothing.
You don't have to watch the Snyder movies. You have to be aware of who the characters are in a weird way, but you know, that Michael Keaton is Batman and Ben Affleck's Batman and the Flash is the Flash, but you don't need to go back and watch all the other movies. It's so easily digestible and accessible, and it's honestly at the same time too, it's a family-friendly blockbuster for all ages where everyone's going to be able to enjoy it. So you can take your kids, you don't have to worry about, you know, any super uber violence in the movie. Like, I mean, there's some crazy shit that happens in it and stuff, but it's on a level that everyone can enjoy, you know, so it's for everyone. And I think that's the best thing about it. It doesn't go too hard. It's not too easy. It's right there in the middle. It's kind of just like what comic book movies used to be. And I know that's a weird way to phrase it, but it just felt that way to me.
I also want to put out that in this movie, I don't believe a weak performance exists.
Oh, I think 100%, dude.
I think every single actor that's in this film was fantastic. There's not one character that I feel like, oh, like they could have probably cast somebody else, like, or this person wasn't very strong in this role. Everyone is great. Is great. And I also like how self-aware a lot of this movie is, you know, because this is not a spoiler as it's in the trailer. You know, there's a little bit of time travel, if you will, that's in this film. And I like some things and conversations that are brought up about it. And that's all that I'll say on it. Like, dude, holy shit. Holy shit.
Damn. That stuff is all...
but yeah, oh my God, it's fucking fantastic. But every single actor, even small, you know, roles in the film, everybody brings it, man, and it's great, and it's really something to see. And like I just said a moment ago, I don't think this is the movie that you're going to go see one time in the theaters. I think this is a movie that people are going to want to see a couple times in the theaters. Because I'm going to say it again. I've said it several times already because it's special.
It's a massive crowd pleaser.
Yeah.
And you're going to want to see it again. And that was the biggest remark that I heard when people left the theater was that can't wait to see it again. It was a blast, you know? And I think we need more of those movies that are just self-contained, that are a one-off or maybe not. We don't know. We have no idea. We know James Gunn is running the door over at Warner Brothers and DC in terms of those movies. So we have no idea. They may be just waiting to see, you know, what the receipts are, but
here's my thing. It's called show business. We talk about that a lot, right? They're in the business to make money, right? They have had some misses this year. They had Shazam that did not perform well.
And then last year Black Adam bombed.
Yeah, so they've had a couple movies that were like that they anticipated were going to be huge that were not. This one is guaranteed. It's going to make so much money, and I'm sorry, but you know, people are saying like, oh, you know, because James Gunn is in charge now, like he's shutting down shop on these other plans that they had for actors and these characters moving forward. But I'm sorry, when your movie is going to make the amount of money that The Flash is guaranteed to make because of the return of Michael Keaton, when they see those numbers, I don't care how much they trust James Gunn. They're going to go, holy fucking shit. We made so much money. What I want to do, I want to make more of that. So for me personally, I don't see, you know, we're talking about a film where there's multiple universes. I don't see a universe where they don't go, you know what? I think we're done with Michael Keaton as Batman. This movie's going to make money. They know the test screenings, the results, the reviews are all going to be talking about, you know, how fantastic Ezra is, of course, but mainly it's going to be talking about the return of Michael Keaton. Why are you going to see this movie? What are you excited about? I'd say 85% of people that are going to see this movie, it's because of Michael Keaton's
Well, Batman. I will say this. I walked through and looked at the crowd a number of times, and I've never seen, minus the, you know, me going to meet Michael Keaton in San Antonio for a convention, I've never seen so many fans wearing vintage Batman Returns or Batman 89 Keaton Batman shirts. I mean, that's the majority of what I saw. And I saw some people, even our friend Anthony Carter, wearing a brand new Flash Batman Keaton shirt. I mean, people were there. I mean, I saw more Keaton Batman shirts than I saw the Flash. And that's not to put anything down on the Flash at all. The studio knows what it's doing. Let's just make that very, very, very fucking clear. They knew what they needed to do and what they wanted to do with this movie in order to make this movie successful. And what they did was perfect, and it worked. I'm very excited to see the final cut. I want to see the actual cut that, people are going to see in the theaters, because as we've made clear a number of times in this episode, what they're showing is a different cut. It's unfinished, as they've said. People have gone out on social media complaining about the CGI. We don't know if that was finished or if it was 85% finished or
I didn't have a problem with any of the CGI. I didn't have a problem with any of it. I thought all of it worked and was great. So,
and we saw it in a 4K laser projected IMAX, which is the way they wanted us to see it, with that amazing sound. And so, I mean, we'll see what happens, but make no mistake, the movie's going to be huge. It sounds like it's a winner. I'm pretty positive. I think at this point it's a winner. But I think that's pretty much all we want to say.
Yeah, for sure.
We're really excited to actually see the final cut. We are going to be seeing a press screening of the movie in terms of the final cut. I was told it will probably happen very shortly after the official IMAX fan event that's happening on June 12th, which, ladies and gentlemen, if you're trying to get tickets to that, I was just showed an image earlier that all of them are selling out all across the country. That's how fucking big this movie is. And when you hear the anticipation in my voice, the excitement, the emphasis, you're probably still going to be hearkening back to those people on Twitter like, you're a clown, you're paid. Listen, you have no idea what it feels like to wait your entire life. And myself, I'm turning 40 this year. And to think that for years, I just thought in the back of my head, how cool would it be? I mean, seriously, Keaton putting on the cape and cowl. And then people are like, Batman Beyond, he could be in that. And I'm like, what? Put him in the Batcave doing nothing?
Put him in a chair? Like, fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Walking around with a cane? Dude, we get him full-fledged Batman. I'll say this now, this is not a spoiler. The best Batman action sequence since the warehouse scene in Batman v Superman. Yeah, it's that fucking good. Okay? I'll say that much. Remember those words, because when you see the movie, you're going to say, Justin and Jeremy from Epic Film Guys, they were fucking right.
Yep.
They were right. And we're going to leave you on that note. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested in checking out KEATONCAST, which is primarily a Patreon-only series, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/epicfilmguys. We have so much in store over there in terms of Keaton-related content. But of course, we've got lots of horror on the way here. We've got the Boogeyman and lots of shit that we can't wait to give you in the coming weeks on our regular channel. And if you want to check us out on social media, at Epic Film Guys, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, we're literally everywhere. And I just wanted to personally thank every single person that came to the screening and everyone that took all of our stickers. Apparently we're popular, Jeremy, because all of our stickers and our enamel pins and all that shit, within the first, I think, like 5 minutes of people leaving the theater, they took all of our swag. So
we so popular.
We so cool. We so, at least I like to think so, but seriously, thank you so much. And thank you so much for listening. So until next time, I'm Justin.
I'm Jeremy.
And we're the Epic Film Guys. And thanks for listening.
EFG!